We're back here on Overtime on WOTM. Mark, let's now talk Braves baseball. They started off really, really rough, losing their first 4 games to start out the year. Found a little groove late last week, finally started getting the runs up. Braves now sitting 4-5 heading into today. They'll play tonight as well as they open up yet another series. Had a 4-game winning streak before losing yesterday in a controversial fashion to the Philadelphia Phillies that we'll see here in yesterday's game. However, I think that the Braves have found a little something that they can kind of hang their hats on, and they haven't played, their best baseball as of yet, but you don't want to play your best baseball in April anyways. I think that this team is kind of finding a groove. Where do you see this club right now after 9 games?
All right, before we get into it, what do you think of those uniforms?
I love them. I think it's old school throwback and kind of goes back to the old Hank Aaron days when Hank Aaron won, got the home run title over Babe Ruth. That's what those jerseys remind me of. That day, of those highlights, those clips. I can see how people have beef with it, but honestly, I'm a fan. I like it.
Well, I think it's kind of a catch-22 because it reminds me, obviously, of Hank Aaron.
That's right.
But it also reminds me of like the Jim Bouton, Ted Turner being a manager, winning like 40 games a year, in the launching pad called Fulton County Stadium. So if I was a Braves fan, there was good memories and there's bad memories of those uniforms. But here's something interesting, too. The Braves were the only team in Major League Baseball history, 1973, that had 3 players have 40 home runs in 1 year.
Wow.
Davey Johnson, who later became manager of the Mets, Hank Aaron, and Darrell Evans, who was one of the best left-handed power-hitting players of his generation, wound up really having most of his best seasons with San Francisco Giants and Detroit Tigers. But that's a little-known fact that reminds me about those uniforms. Now, getting back to this play here it is right here. You can see this guy reminds me just like Jason Worth, too. This is what I thought it was. Jason Worth's been retired a couple of years. He clearly misses them.
Right.
As far as, Baum does not touch home plate. What the umpires eventually said was that his right pinky toe might have caught part of the outside of the plate.
Right.
And it wasn't enough to overrule it where they clearly saw him miss home plate. Now, if you understand instant replay at all, in 2011, the Braves and Pirates played a 19-inning game that went on. It was one of the longest games in Atlanta history. It ended like 1:56 in the morning. It was almost as legendary as the July 4th fireworks game.
Right.
Where the Braves benefited from. Julio Lugo was called safe at the plate, where he was clearly out. And then they just at that point they did have instant replay, but it was only 4 home runs.
Right.
And then, if you remember being a Braves fan, of course you should remember this, in a 2012 wild card game, Andrelton Simmons hit a pop-up in the 8th inning, down 6-3, that would have loaded the bases, and Brian McCann coming up with a chance to really get into that lead by the Cardinals, and they ruled it an infield fly rule.
Right.
And this ball was in the middle of the outfield. So that was another reason we need instant replay, because they couldn't go and look at that. And then finally, 2014, they extended to where now they can look at not only home run calls, but they can look at double play balls. They can look at plays like that. They can look at, still can't look at balls and strikes, but can look at other things that affect the outside of the game, which Galarraga for the Tigers would have had his perfect game if they allowed that. And also the Mets would have lost their perfect game because Carlos Beltran did hit a double, but they didn't look at it. It was fair. They ruled it foul. And then, as you saw, that was the Mets no-hitter. And then also the other night, the Padres threw their no-hitter. So now all the teams in Major Leagues have a no-hitter. But look, that's a tough call if you're a Braves fan. Number one, because you lose to the Phillies.
Right.
You would love to sweep the Phillies there. Phillies are still in first place. They beat you down in Philadelphia. But it is what it is. You just got to make the best of it. The Braves kind of got back on track. So overall, I think you're happy with this weekend as a Braves fan. But that will leave you a sore taste in your mouth, because he should have been ruled out. If you're going to have instant replay, then you got to get the call right. I don't care if it's something, if you were to really look at that, by the average eye, that you clearly misses a plate. I think they did it just to be safe, but the safe call isn't always the right one.
Exactly, and they did make the right one, in my opinion, and I think that it cost the Braves, and it ended their their 4-game winning streak going into it. However, one of the things that you broke down is the offensive numbers within these first 9 games of the year. The first 4 games of the year, obviously 0-4 to start the season off, wins and losses, but your breakdown goes even deeper with the batting average a little bit better. Still not fantastic, but it's better in the last 5 games. On-base OPS has been great, and also really pitching really well as well.
Yeah, well, I think their bullpen's been really well, but their starters really have not gone deep enough. Only Charlie Morton and Drew Smiley have gone beyond or 6 innings or more, and nobody's gone more than 6 innings.
Right.
So when you don't do that, then your bullpen pitches more, and it might not be an issue now, but I guarantee you by the middle of July it's going to be an issue when these guys are sweating to death in the middle of Atlanta. So you want your starters to go at least 7 innings starting like the end of May into June before you really just waste out your bullpen. But look, 128 over the first 4 games is not very brave. And even 268, there's still a couple guys that need to get going. But one of the players that we're going to look at is really taking off. He's having a good night again tonight. Has 2 runs scored, and is really, to me, could be the best player of his generation.
Exactly, and that is Ronald Acuna. We'll take a look at a couple of plays that you've kind of pointed out from this past week's games against the Philadelphia Phillies. The first one we'll look at is him out running a ground ball. This was kind of all over both social media and ESPN and different web places as well. I love this video because it does have the clock that goes along with it. One of the things that is kind of routine in baseball, he made it not routine because he's able to outrun it. And, I mean, his hustle is just, it's insane.
But that's what you want to see. This is what we love from Acuna. He's got the speed. Every play that he hits the ball on the ground, he can do this.
Right.
All right? You saw the shortstop kind of let up a little bit, and then he beat it right down to first baseline. If they're going to let up a little bit, Acuna's fast enough to do that. This is what I love about him. When his head is in the game, there is nothing stopping him from dominating at a number of different aspects. But the game is changing a little bit.
Right.
And now you got to get your little, your style in it a little bit. You got to, let the pitcher know that you hit the ball hard against him. You got to let your guys in the dugout know, that you're, top dog. So I think a lot of that now with some of these younger generational players is taking shape. When I was younger, the Ricky Hendersons would do that. I remember Jeffrey Leonard used to have a thing called one flap down, where he would run around the bases with one arm down, saying that pitch was nothing.
Right.
So guys have done that over the years, but I think now more than ever you have batters and pitchers that are really sensitive to being disrespected. That's the one thing that I don't want to happen to Acuna. All right. If you saw him Friday night, he hit a ball, I think, into Alabama. I mean, he hit this thing so far. It started to rain, actually. And it was the 10th home run of 450 feet or more.
Exactly.
So he's used to hitting home runs.
Right, and that'll be the next thing that we break down here is a 454-foot home run. And you mentioned everybody's got a different style to him, but this one was just, number one, crushed.
Yeah, look at it. I mean, the ball is just, where is it? I think it hit the Chief Oklahoma's teepee. But what I don't like, we're going to see here. And it's not like guys can't celebrate the home run. You want guys to be excited. You want them to get into it. You want them to kind of, get the crowd and get, the home team into it. What you don't really want to do is show up the pitcher. Now, that could be a fine line to be drawn. And as you get better, pitchers tend to tolerate more and more.
Right.
If you're a number 8 hitter and you're hitting your first home run of your career, they're not going to be too happy if you're, styling it down to the first baseline. But I don't like this for 2 reasons. Number one, I mean, there is a gamesmanship to it a little bit, but in the first inning or the 5th inning, and if it's not like a major moment, you don't want to rub it in, but I could understand being excited, but standing there and kind of watching it and then flipping a bat and barking at your boys, I think is a little bit too much for that type of moment. And it depends who you hit it off of too. If you hit one off of Scherzer, maybe you could take a little bit longer. But I think the other reason why I don't like it is because you can get him hurt, and he can get some of his teammates hurt.
Right.
And I don't want him being thrown at.
Exactly.
If I'm a Braves manager.
And it looks like he's kind of almost heading in that direction. We'll see how it all goes. And baseball looks to be on a campaign where they're trying to let players show their enthusiasm before the game. Ronald Acuna is one of the players that you highlighted as one of the hot players right now for the Atlanta Braves. We'll have to take a look at who's hot and who's not right now for this baseball team. And it's kind of a breakdown of players that maybe not started off really well and some that have got off to a great note so far.
Yeah, obviously Acuna, two guys from their bullpen, Josh Tama and Tyler Matzek, that really helped them come on and keep the Braves in the game after the starters have left it. Christian Pache, I like it. And when he came up last year, a lot of people thought he might be, an outside shot for Rookie of the Year.
Right.
But he came up a little bit too late. I think he had some COVID problems early on. 3 for 28, one of obviously that's not good. Max Fried, he'll get his chance again next time in the rotation. Max Fried's got great stuff. I expect him to come out of it, but he's really gotten whipped up his first 2 starts. Pablo Ozuna was a huge pickup last year, starting with that home run he hit off of Edwin Diaz in his second game against the Mets in the bottom of the ninth inning. It broke my heart. Ozuna had a great year last year, kind of replaced everything Josh Donaldson did. I expect him to come back and have a good year. But last year, he was better than he had been throughout his whole career.
Right.
So maybe he's not going to hit 325, and he's not going to slug over 900, or have an OPS over 900, but he should be good enough to maintain the middle of the order behind Freddie Freeman, who, although he's struggling, has 4 homers and 7 RBIs.
Exactly. So that's who's hot and who's not right now. Meanwhile, we'll take a look at some of the teams around the league and the bullpens. And the Braves bullpen was one of the ones that at times kind of hurt them. But as of right now, the fewest earned runs allowed so far, led by the Padres.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things that you can look at here. The Braves are getting more innings, so the more innings and the less runs you allow obviously is better. But 4 of their 5 losses have come as a result of the bullpen because of calls like last night. I mean, you can't really blame them last night, but they've had a lot of situations where the game was tied and then they allow 1 run without really getting hit hard.
Exactly. 100% there. Coming up next here on Overtime, we'll talk spring football at Tuscaloosa. They will have 8-8 coming up this week. Obviously, a culmination to a very, very long and hard spring training practice. We'll talk Bama football coming up next. We only have 6 minutes. I got 6:45.